The metal walls of Harmony Point Station hummed with the quiet buzz of air recyclers and power systems. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison walked down the main corridor, his blue uniform crisp and clean. He carried a small datapad in his left hand and nodded to the various alien crew members he passed. After 3 years on this station, he knew most of them by name. Jake had always been good at remembering names. It was one of the things that made him a successful peacekeeper. When you remembered someone's name, they felt important. When they felt important, they were more likely to listen to reason. The Kepler sector had been a problem area for 12 years now. 3 different alien species all wanted the same things: planets, resources, and respect. The reptilian Vector Empire thought they were the strongest and deserved everything. The insect-like Jiri collective believed their hive mind made them smarter than everyone else. The crystal beings called the Mordone Federation claimed they were the oldest and wisest. Jake had learned to work with all of them. He spoke their languages, understood their customs, and never took sides. In 3 years, he had stopped 17 different fights from turning into wars. Not bad for a human who most aliens still thought of as the new species. Today's meeting was about an asteroid field called the Silver Chain. Both the Vector and the Jiri wanted to mine it. The asteroids contained rare metals that both species needed for their technology. Instead of fighting over it, they had agreed to let Jake help them find a solution. The conference room was large and circular, with a big round table in the center. General Scart H of the Vector Empire sat on one side. He was 8 feet tall, with dark green scales and yellow eyes that never seemed to blink. His claws clicked against the table surface as he waited. Across from him sat Hive Speaker Cloak Tara of the Jiri Collective. She looked like a giant mantis with 4 arms and large compound eyes. When she spoke, her voice sounded like dozens of people talking at once, which always made Jake feel a little dizzy. Jake took his seat between them and activated his translator device. "Thank you both for coming today. I think we can find a way for everyone to benefit from the Silver Chain asteroids." General Scart H made a low, growling sound. "The Vector Empire has claimed this territory for 6 months. We have the strongest fleet in this sector. The asteroids belong to us." Hive Speaker Clegg Tara's 4 arms moved in complex gestures. "The collective survey ships found the Silver Chain first. Our hive minds can process the mining data more efficiently than any other species. Logic dictates that we should control the resources." Jake had heard these same arguments many times before. Both species always claimed they were the best at everything. He pulled up a holographic display showing the asteroid field. What if we divided the field into sections? The Vector could take the outer ring, which has larger asteroids, better suited for your heavy mining equipment. The Jiri could take the inner ring, where the smaller asteroids would be perfect for your precision extraction methods. General Scarth's yellow eyes narrowed. "You suggest we share? The Vector do not share with insects. And you suggest we accept scraps from reptilian primitives?" Clegg Tara's compound eyes focused on Scart H. "The collective finds this offensive." Jake raised his hands for calm. "Please, let's look at the benefits. General Scarth, your outer ring asteroids contain 3 times more raw materials. Hive Speaker Clegg Tara, your inner ring has purer concentrations of the rare elements your people need. You would both get more resources than if you fought over the whole field and damaged it in the process." For a moment, Jake thought they were listening. Clegg Tara's arms stopped moving as she tilted her head in the way that meant she was thinking. General Scarth leaned back in his chair, and his claws stopped clicking. Then Scart H stood up suddenly, his massive frame towering over the table. "I am tired of this human telling the Vector Empire what to do. For 3 years, you have interfered in the affairs of superior species. You are weak. Your people are weak. You have no right to dictate terms to your betters. Jake remained calm. He had dealt with angry aliens before. General, I'm not dictating anything. I'm offering suggestions that could help both of your peoples. Prosper. Prosper? Scarth's voice became a roar. The Vector Empire prospers through strength and conquest, not through begging for scraps like humans do. You are parasites, feeding off conflicts between real warriors. Jake stood up slowly, keeping his hands visible and non-threatening. I understand you're frustrated, General, but anger won't solve the asteroid problem. Let's take a break and come back to this later when everyone has had time to think. No more thinking. Scart H reached for the weapon at his side. No more human interference. The plasma blade ignited with a bright blue flash. Jake saw it coming and threw himself. Sideways, not to escape, but to shield Hive Speaker Tara from the attack. The burning energy cut through his chest, and he collapsed to the floor. Peace requires sacrifice, Jake whispered, blood on his lips. Not victims. Those were his last words. The recording devices in the conference room captured everything. Within hours, the footage was transmitted across the galaxy through quantum communication networks. Every human world, every space station, every ship in the fleet received the same terrible message. They had killed a Peacekeeper. On Luna Base, Admiral Lisa Chun watched the recording 3 times before she could accept what she was seeing. Jake Morrison had been one of their best. He had volunteered for Peacekeeper duty because he genuinely believed in making the galaxy a better place. Now he was dead, murdered for trying to prevent a war. Admiral Chun activated her emergency communication system and sent a priority message to Earth. Peacekeeper down. Hostile action by Victor forces. Request immediate orders. The response came back within an hour. President Alex Rivera's face appeared on the screen, his expression grim. Admiral, you are authorized to implement Protocol 7. All human forces are now under unified command. The Vector Empire has 24 hours to surrender, General. Scart H for trial. If they refuse, we go to war. Admiral Chun had never seen Protocol 7 implemented before. She had helped write it years ago, but never expected to use it. Now, as she began sending activation codes to human forces across the galaxy, she wondered if the aliens truly understood what they had unleashed. The Vector Empire's response came exactly 24 hours later. Emperor Thraxer appeared on galactic communication channels, his massive form decorated with battle honors and ceremonial weapons. The human weaklings demand justice for their fallen insect. The Vector Empire does not bow to primitives. General. Scart H acted with honor in removing an obstacle to Victor glory. If the humans want war, they shall have it. We will teach them their place in the galactic order. The message ended with Thraxer F laughter echoing across space. You would not be laughing for long. Fleet Admiral Ben Foster stood in the war room beneath Geneva, looking at the largest holographic display he had ever seen. The 3-dimensional map showed every human colony, every trade route, every military base, and every ship in space. Red dots marked Vector positions. Blue dots showed human assets. What the aliens didn't know was that there were far more blue dots than anyone had ever imagined around the circular table sat the most powerful humans in the galaxy. Colonial governors joined the meeting by quantum link from distant worlds. Corporate executives who controlled vast shipping fleets waited for orders. Military commanders from every branch of human forces studied their tactical displays. Admiral Foster had been planning for this day for 20 years. Not this exact situation, but something like it. Humans had learned long ago that peace was fragile, and that someone would eventually test their resolve. Now that test had come. Ladies and gentlemen, Foster began, as of 1 hour ago, all human. Military and civilian assets are now under unified command. Protocol 7 is in effect. We are at war. Captain Emma Rodriguez attended the meeting from her ship, the heavy cruiser Phoenix. She had been patrolling the border between human and Jiri space when the orders came. Admiral, my crew is ready. What are our first targets? Captain Rodriguez, you and the Third Fleet will begin Phase 1 operations in the Outer Rim. Your target list is being transmitted now. Foster touched his control panel and sent encrypted orders to ships. Across human space. What those ships received would have shocked every alien government in the galaxy. For decades, human merchant vessels had been traveling the space lanes, carrying cargo and conducting trade. What the aliens didn't know was that every single merchant ship had been built with hidden military capabilities. Captain Tony Miller commanded what appeared to be a simple cargo hauler called the Steady Prophet. His ship carried farming equipment between human colonies in the Centauri sector. At least, that's what his manifest said. When Miller received his Protocol 7 orders, he smiled for the first time in months. "Attention, crew," Miller announced. "Over the ship's communication system, we have new orders. Seal all cargo bays and prepare for military conversion." The Steady Prophet's transformation took exactly 47 minutes. Hidden panels slid away to reveal weapon turrets. The cargo. Holds reconfigured into launch bays for fighter drones. The ship's modest engines switched to their true power settings, tripling the vessel's speed and maneuverability. All across human space, the same scene played out on hundreds of ships. Freighters became destroyers. Colony transports revealed themselves as troop carriers. Even small passenger shuttles began broadcasting military identification codes. Dr. Ryan Park worked in a laboratory on Mars, but his real job had nothing to do with medicine. For 12 years, he had been studying every piece of information that human peacekeepers and diplomats had gathered about alien species. He knew vector battle tactics, Jiri communication patterns, and Mordan technology weaknesses. The Vector have 17 major military bases, Park explained to the strategy team. But their real weakness is their pride. They always attack from the front because they believe surprise attacks are dishonorable. They also can't fight effectively in temperatures below 20 degrees Celsius. This kind of detailed intelligence existed for every major alien species. While humans had been playing the role of peaceful newcomers, they had actually been the galaxy's most thorough observers. Every diplomatic mission had included intelligence officers. Every trade agreement had revealed alien industrial capabilities. Every cultural exchange had mapped alien psychology. Commander Kyle Stevens received his orders while his ship was docked at Armstrong Station near Earth's moon. The Retribution had been Jake Morrison's favorite ship when he served in the fleet. Now it would be the first to avenge his death. "Crew of the Retribution," Stevens announced, "our mission is simple. We're going to show the Vector Empire what happens when you kill a human peacekeeper. Prepare for immediate departure." The aliens began to notice changes in human behavior within days of the declaration of war. Vector Intelligence Officer Thakmer monitored human communication channels from his post on the border world of Kreshta. What he saw confused him. Human merchant ships that had been traveling alone for years suddenly began moving in convoy. Formations. Civilian space stations started broadcasting military identification signals. Most puzzling of all, human diplomatic missions began withdrawing from non-essential sectors without explanation. Thakmer sent a report to his superiors. Human activity patterns have changed significantly. Recommend increased surveillance of human space. The response came back 3 hours later. Humans are cowards running from superior vector might. Continue monitoring, but take no action. If Thakmer could have seen what was happening in human space, he would have recommended immediate retreat instead. On New Texas, The civilian shipyards had converted to military production overnight. Instead of building cargo haulers and passenger ships, they were now assembling destroyers and battle cruisers at 3 times their normal construction rate. The mining colonies in the asteroid belt stopped shipping metals to alien worlds and redirected everything to military production facilities. Human industrial capacity, spread across dozens of worlds and hundreds of space stations, had become the largest war machine the galaxy had ever seen. General Patricia Clark commanded the human base on Titan. Her official title was Colonial Defense Coordinator, which made the aliens think she commanded a small local militia. In reality, Clark controlled strategic reserves that included some of the most advanced military technology in human space. Phase 2 is approved, Clark announced to her staff. Begin deployment of the reconnaissance squadrons. I want to know the location of every Vector ship, base, and supply depot within 6 weeks. The reconnaissance squadrons were Commander Sarah Knight's specialty. Her stealth corvettes had been operating in alien space for years, disguised as research vessels and exploration ships. Now they would reveal their true purpose. Knight's ships used technology that humans had developed completely independently of alien science. While other species focused on bigger guns and stronger armor, humans had perfected the art of not being seen at all. Knight's corvettes could slip past alien sensor networks like ghosts. President Alex Rivera addressed the human population from his office in Geneva. The speech was broadcast to every human world, every space station, every ship in the fleet. My fellow humans, Rivera began, 12 hours ago, a Vector general murdered Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison in cold blood. Jake died trying to prevent a war. The Vector Empire has refused to surrender his killer for trial. They have chosen war instead of justice. Rivera paused and looked directly into the camera. For over a century, we have been the peacekeepers of this galaxy. We have prevented conflicts, mediated disputes, and helped other species resolve their differences. We did this because we believe in peace. We believe in justice. We believe that the strong should protect the weak, not prey upon them. His voice grew harder. The Vector Empire has demonstrated that they understand only strength. Very well. They wanted to see human strength. They killed a man who devoted his life to preventing exactly this moment. Now they will learn why humans value peace so highly, because we are exceptionally good at the alternative. The message reached alien governments within hours. Most dismissed it as typical human diplomacy. The Jiri Collective filed it under irrelevant political speeches. The Mordund Federation barely acknowledged receiving it. Only Emperor Threxer bothered to respond. His message was brief. Let the human children come. The Vector Empire has been fighting wars since before their species learned to make fire. They will learn respect for their superiors. Admiral Foster received the Emperor's message in the Geneva War Room. He shared it with the assembled commanders, who responded with grim smiles. Gentlemen and ladies, Foster said quietly, I believe it's time to begin our education program. The Emperor wants to teach us respect. Let's show him what humans have learned about warfare in our brief time among the stars. The war was about to begin. The attack began at exactly 0600 hours, Galactic Standard Time, on 17 different Vector positions simultaneously. The aliens had expected humans to challenge them to an honorable battle, fleet against fleet in open space. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to follow any rules they understood. Captain Matt Turner commanded the destroyer squadron that hit the Vector mining world of Kethmer. The planet was supposed to be safe, protected, by orbital defense platforms and a garrison of elite Vector warriors. Turner's ships appeared at the edge of the system like ghosts, moving silently through the asteroid field that surrounded the planet. Remember, Turner told his crew over the communication system, We're not here to destroy the planet. We're here to make a point. The Vector think they're safe behind their defenses. Let's show them how wrong they are. The first thing Turners people did was launch cyber attacks against the orbital platforms. Human computer specialists had been studying Vector technology for years. They knew exactly which systems to target and how to shut them down without triggering alarms. One by one, the defensive platforms went dark. Their crews never knew what hit them. The weapon systems simply stopped working. The sensor arrays went blind. The communication networks fell silent by the time the Vector garrison realized they were under attack. Human landing craft were already entering the planet's atmosphere. But these weren't normal troop transports. They were specially designed vessels that could operate in the extreme conditions that protected Kethmor from invasion. The planet's surface was a nightmare of toxic gases, crushing gravity, and temperatures that would kill most galactic species. Within minutes, the Vector had chosen it for mining operations because they thought no other species could survive there. They were wrong. Lieutenant Colonel Anna Price led the first wave of human soldiers onto Kethmer's surface. Her troops wore powered armor that made them stronger than Vector warriors and completely immune to the planet's hostile environment. They moved through the toxic clouds like deadly shadows. The mining complex is 2 kilometers north, Price reported to Turner. Vector defenders are taking positions in the main facility. They're trying to use the terrain to their advantage. Price smiled inside her helmet. The Vector were fighting exactly the way human intelligence had predicted they would. They formed defensive lines and waited for a frontal assault. They expected their enemies to charge directly into their guns like honorable warriors. Instead, Price's soldiers did something the Vector had never seen before. They disappeared into Kethmer's cave systems and began moving underground. The planet's geology, thoroughly mapped by human mining surveys years earlier, became their highway system. The Vector defenders waited for an attack that never came. Instead, human soldiers began appearing behind their lines, striking command posts and supply depots before vanishing back into the caves. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't see or predict. Commander Sarah Knight was busy proving that human stealth technology was far more advanced than anyone had imagined. Her Corvette squadron moved through Vector space like invisible hunters, striking supply convoys and communication relays before disappearing again. Knight's ship, the Silent Hunter, materialized next to a Vector supply depot without triggering a single alarm. Her crew disabled the facility's defenses, downloaded all their intelligence files, and destroyed their supplies in less than 10 minutes. By the time reinforcements arrived, the depot was empty and the attackers were gone. "This is impossible," the depot commander reported to his superiors. "Our sensors showed nothing. No ships, no energy signatures, no movement." Then suddenly, our entire facility was destroyed by invisible enemies. Similar reports began flooding Vector communication networks from across their territory. Ships appeared from nowhere, struck fast, and vanished before defenders could respond. Facilities that had been secure for decades suddenly found themselves under attack by enemies that seemed to exist only when they chose to be seen. The psychological impact was devastating. Vector soldiers began reporting ghost ships and demon warriors that appeared from thin air. Their rigid military training, designed for predictable honor-based combat, couldn't cope with an enemy that refused to fight fair. General Scart H. himself decided to lead a retaliatory strike against what he believed would be an easy target. The human agricultural world of New Kansas had a population of only 50,000 farmers and their families. Scarth brought an entire battle fleet to crush them. These soft human farmers will learn the price of opposing the Vector Empire. Scart H. announced to his officers, "We will make an example that will terrify their species for generations. Scarth's fleet arrived at New Kansas, expecting to find helpless civilians hiding behind minimal defenses. Instead, they discovered that human farmers were nothing like. Farmers on other worlds, not every settlement on New Kansas, had defensive positions that had been carefully prepared and camouflaged. Every farmer owned military-grade equipment and knew exactly how to use it. The local militia moved and fought with a coordination that suggested extensive military training. Farm supervisor Bill Carter had been a Marine sergeant before he came to New Kansas. When his sensors detected the incoming Vector fleet, he activated the planet's defense network with practiced efficiency. "All units, this is Defense Command," Carter announced over the planetary communication system. "We have hostile contacts inbound. Execute Plan 7. Show these lizards what human farmers can do." The first wave of Vector landing craft expected to face frightened civilians with farming tools. Instead, they found themselves under attack by heavy weapons that emerged from hidden positions throughout the countryside. Human defenders used their knowledge of local terrain, weather patterns, and seasonal conditions to devastating effect. Scarth watched in disbelief as his superior force was systematically torn apart by what he had thought were primitive farmers. His soldiers, trained for glorious combat, found themselves trapped in a nightmare of mines, ambushes, and precision strikes that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The humans used tactics that no honorable warrior would consider. They poisoned water sources that Vector physiology required. They used electromagnetic weapons that disrupted Vector technology, but had no effect on human equipment. They even weaponized the local weather, using storm systems to ground Vector. "Aircraft, this is not warfare," Scarth raged to his remaining officers. "This is barbarism. These humans have no honor, no courage. They fight like cowards and terrorists." Captain Rodriguez, listening to intercepted Vector communications from her ship in orbit, laughed at Scarth's complaints. "Honor doesn't bring dead peacekeepers back to life," she told her crew. "Let's see how honorable they feel when they're losing." The battle for New Kansas lasted 3 days. When it ended, Scarth had lost 60% of his force to farmers who had never attended a military academy. The survivors retreated in disorder, leaving behind enough equipment to supply a human army. But the real victory wasn't the equipment or the casualties. It was the message that spread throughout Vector space. Humans didn't fight the way other species fought. They didn't follow the rules. They didn't respect traditions. They simply found the most effective way to win and used it without hesitation. Emperor Thraxer received Scarth's report in his throne room on the Vector homeworld. For the first time since the war began, doubt crept into his mind. His forces were losing to an enemy that wasn't supposed to be able to fight at all. "How many human soldiers are we facing?" the Emperor asked his intelligence chief. "Unknown. My lord, our estimates range from millions to tens of millions. They seem to have unlimited reserves and can strike anywhere in our territory without warning." The Emperor's claws scraped against his throne. "Then we will strike at their homeworld. We will show them that the Vector Empire cannot be defeated by cowardly tactics." But even as he spoke, Emperor Thraxer wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. The humans were proving to be far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. And this was only the beginning of the war. 6 months after the war began, the galaxy looked very different from what anyone had expected. Human forces had captured or destroyed 47 Vector installations, while losing only 3 of their own. The secret to their success wasn't just better weapons or tactics. It was something much more fundamental. Humans thought about war in ways that no other species had ever imagined. Colonel Chris Hayes stood on the bridge of the terraforming ship New Horizon, watching as his engineers transformed the Vector fortress. World of Raktar Prime. The planet had been considered unconquerable, protected by massive defensive installations and home to 2 million Vector soldiers. Hayes had decided not to conquer it at all. Atmospheric composition is now 30% Earth normal, reported Chief Engineer Lisa Park. Vector physiology will begin experiencing severe respiratory distress within 72 hours. Hayes nodded and watched the orbital displays. Giant mirrors redirected sunlight to change surface temperatures. Specially designed bacteria, harmless to humans but devastating to Vector technology, spread through the planet's air and water systems. The world itself was becoming a weapon. "This is wrong," transmitted the Vector planetary commander. "Worlds are sacred. They are meant to be conquered, not destroyed. Your species has no honor." "We're not destroying your world," Hayes replied calmly. "We're improving it. In 6 months, Raktar Prime will have a breathable atmosphere and comfortable temperatures for human settlers. Your people are welcome to evacuate any time they choose." The Vector couldn't understand this approach to warfare. To them, planets were prizes to be won through glorious battle. The idea of changing an entire world's ecology as a military tactic was beyond their comprehension. It was also terrifyingly effective. Dr. Nina Foster worked in a research facility on Europa, developing weapons that other species would never have thought to create. Her team had spent months studying Vector genetics and psychology, looking for weaknesses that could be exploited without causing permanent harm. "The fear response compound is ready for field testing," Dr. Foster reported to Admiral Chun. "It won't kill Vector soldiers, but it will make them experience overwhelming terror for approximately 6 hours. Their own brain chemistry will convince them that they're facing monsters." Admiral Chun approved the weapon's deployment with mixed feelings. Humans had always prided themselves on fighting cleanly, but the murder of Jake Morrison had changed many things. "Deploy it against military targets only. Civilians are off limits." The first test of Dr. Foster's fear compound came during the Battle of the Helix Nebula. Elite Vector warriors, veterans of dozens of campaigns, suddenly found themselves cowering in terror as invisible enemies seemed to lurk around every corner. The psychological impact spread through their ranks like wildfire. Captain Luke Morgan commanded the carrier group that led the human assault in the Helix Nebula. His flagship, the Defiant, was destroyed in the opening minutes of the battle when Vector forces concentrated their fire on his position. Most commanders would have retreated or surrendered. Morgan simply transferred his flag to an escape pod and continued coordinating the battle from there. His mobile shipyards, hidden in the nebula's gas clouds, began manufacturing replacement vessels in real time. Within hours, human forces had actually grown larger than when the battle started. "How is this possible?" demanded Vector Admiral Kreshtok. "We destroy their ships faster than they can build them, yet their numbers keep increasing." What the Vector didn't understand was human industrial philosophy. While other species built massive shipyards in fixed locations, humans had learned to make their manufacturing mobile and distributed. Every human fleet included vessels that could produce fighters, drones, and even capital ships using raw materials gathered from asteroids and gas clouds. The psychological impact of this capability was enormous. Vector forces found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to regenerate faster than it could be destroyed. Human fleets appeared to be immortal. The war's impact extended far beyond the humans and Vector. Other alien species watched the conflict with growing amazement and alarm. The Jiri Collective and the Morgon Federation, initially neutral, began quietly supporting human efforts. Hive speaker Kaltara, the same Jiri delegate who had witnessed Jake Morrison's murder, met secretly with human diplomats on the neutral station Deep Space 7. "The collective offers the use of our communication networks for human military operations," she announced through her multiple voices. Ambassador Carol Hughes, Jake Morrison's replacement, accepted the offer gratefully. Why is the collective willing to help us? Because we understand what this war is truly about, K.L. Katara replied. You fight not for conquest or resources, but to establish rules that protect the weak from the strong. This benefits all civilized species. The Morgan Federation made a similar decision. Elder Crystal Thonekar transmitted a message to Admiral Foster. The Morgan provides sanctuary for human wounded and refugees. We also share our knowledge of Vector military history. Your cause is just. For the first time in galactic history, multiple species were actively supporting another species' war effort without being formal allies. The reason was simple. Everyone could see that humanity was fighting for principles that would benefit the entire galaxy. Emperor Thraxer realized his empire was losing when human forces penetrated the Victor home system. Admiral Chun's fleet didn't attack the planet directly. Instead, they positioned themselves at strategic points around the system and began broadcasting a simple message. People of the Victor Empire, Admiral Chun announced on all communication channels, your government killed a human peacekeeper who died trying to prevent this war. We offer you one final chance for peace. Surrender General Scart H for trial, and we will withdraw our forces. Refuse, and watch your empire burn one world at a time. The message was accompanied by footage of what had happened to other Vector worlds. Raktar Prime, now an empty shell with an unbreathable atmosphere. Kethmer, its mining operations shut down and its garrison defeated by human farmers. Dozens of other worlds and stations, captured or destroyed by an enemy that fought unlike anything the Victor had ever faced. But the most terrifying part of the message was what it didn't say. The human fleet surrounding the Victor homeworld was enormous, but long-range sensors detected even more ships hiding in the outer system. Human industrial capacity, distributed across hundreds of worlds and thousands of mobile facilities, seemed to be infinite. General Scart H himself watched the message from his command bunker on the Vector capital. The same warrior who had murdered Jake Morrison, in a moment of pride and anger, now faced the consequences of his actions. An entire species had united to seek justice for the death of one peacekeeper. My lord, one of his officers reported, we're receiving communication requests from 17 planetary governors. They want to discuss surrender terms. Scarth's claws scraped against his armor. The Vector Empire does not surrender to primitives. With respect, General, the officer replied carefully. These primitives have just defeated our entire military in 6 months. Perhaps it's time to reconsider our position. For the first time since the war began, Scart H felt something he had never experienced before: fear. Not the chemical fear that human weapons could induce, but the real understanding that his people faced an enemy they could not defeat. In his bunker on the Victor homeworld, surrounded by the greatest fortress in the galaxy, General Scart H finally began to understand what Jake Morrison had meant when he said that peace required sacrifice, not victims. The question now was whether the Vector Empire would choose sacrifice, or continue to create victims until nothing remained of their civilization but ashes and regret. The end came not with a massive battle, but with a simple surrender transmission from the Vector homeworld. Emperor Thraxer appeared on communication screens across the galaxy, his ceremonial armor removed and his pride finally broken. The Vector Empire formally requests an end to hostilities, the Emperor announced, his voice barely above a whisper. We will surrender General Scart H for trial and accept whatever terms the human government demands. Admiral Chun received the message aboard her flagship in orbit around the Vector capital. After 8 months of war, the conflict was ending exactly as humanity had demanded from the beginning. Justice for Jake Morrison. Prepare a boarding party, Shun ordered her staff. We'll take custody of General Scart H within the hour, and send a message to Earth. The war is over. The capture of Scart H was surprisingly simple. The general, who had murdered a human peacekeeper in a moment of arrogance, now waited in chains, surrounded by his own guards, who had orders to hand him over without resistance. When human Marines arrived to take custody, Scarth looked like a broken creature. "You have destroyed my empire," Scart H said to Captain Rodriguez, who led the arrest team. "No," Rodriguez replied calmly. "You destroyed your empire the moment. You killed Jake Morrison. We just made sure everyone understood the consequences." 3 weeks later, representatives from every major species in the galaxy gathered on Nexus, prime for what would become known as the Great Trial. The enormous council chambers had never seen anything like it, an entire species demanding justice. For the murder of one individual, Captain Claire Reeves served as the chief prosecutor for the human government. She had been Jake Morrison's partner during his early peacekeeping missions and knew better than anyone what kind of man he had been. Her opening statement echoed across the galaxy. Jake Morrison died trying to prevent the very war that his murder caused, Reeves told the assembled delegates. He believed that peace was possible if good people were willing to work for it. General, Scarth killed him not in battle, not in self-defense, but because he couldn't accept that a human had something valuable to offer. The trial lasted 12 days. Human prosecutors presented evidence that the murder had been planned, not a crime of passion. Scarth had intended to test human resolve and show other species that humans could be killed with impunity. The plan had worked, but not the way he expected. For 12 years, Reeves continued, human peacekeepers worked to prevent conflicts like this one. We gathered intelligence, yes, but we also genuinely tried to help species resolve their differences peacefully. Every piece of military information we collected was intended to prevent wars, not start them. The evidence was overwhelming. Video recordings showed Scarth's premeditated aggression. Communication intercepts revealed Vector plans to eliminate human influence in the Kepler sector. Most damning of all were Scarth's own words after the murder, bragging to his officers about teaching the human weaklings their place. Hive speaker Cluktara testified about what she had witnessed in the conference room. The human Morrison threw himself between General Scarth's weapon and my person, she told the court through her multiple voices. His final act was to protect one who had been his negotiating partner only moments before. This is the individual General Scarth chose to murder. The trial revealed something else that shocked the galaxy, the true extent of human military preparation. Admiral Foster testified about Protocol 7 and humanity's hidden defensive capabilities. The peaceful humans who had seemed so vulnerable were actually the most prepared species in known space. We didn't build this military machine for conquest, Foster explained to the stunned delegates. We built it because we knew that someday someone would test our commitment to peace. We hoped that day would never come. General Scarth forced our hand. Emperor Thraxer was called to testify about his government's response to human demands for justice. His appearance shocked everyone who knew Vector culture. The proud emperor looked old and defeated, his scales dull and his movements slow. I believed humans were weak, Thraxer admitted. I thought their peaceful nature meant they could not fight. I was wrong about everything. They are the strongest species I have ever encountered, precisely because they choose peace when they could choose war. The emperor's testimony included a formal apology to the human government and the family of Jake Morrison. I accept full responsibility for this war, he concluded. My pride and arrogance led to the deaths of millions of Vector citizens and the near destruction of our civilization. General Scarth H was found guilty of murder, war crimes, and crimes against galactic peace. His sentence was life imprisonment on a human world, where he would spend his remaining years learning about the primitive species he had so badly underestimated. But the trial's most important outcome wasn't Scarth's punishment. It was the creation of the Morrison Accords, a new set of galactic laws named after the murdered Peacekeeper. These laws established clear rules for peaceful interaction between species and severe penalties for those who broke them. President Rivera signed the Accords on behalf of humanity in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. These laws exist because Jake Morrison believed that peace was worth dying for, Rivera announced. We will make sure his sacrifice means something. The signing ceremony took place on a new space station built at the exact coordinates where Jake Morrison had been murdered. The Morrison Memorial Station became the headquarters for the new galactic peacekeeping force, with humans taking the leading role in maintaining galactic stability. Captain Amy Zhang, Morrison's designated successor, became the first director of the Memorial Station. She stood in the main conference room, the same room where Morrison had died, and addressed the first class of new peacekeepers from 12 different species. Peace isn't the absence of conflict, Zhang told the assembled trainees. Peace is what happens when people choose to resolve their differences without violence. Jake Morrison understood this. He died for this principle. Now it's our job to make sure he didn't die in vain. The war had transformed humanity's position in the galaxy completely. They were no longer seen as newcomers or weak diplomats. They had become the unofficial protectors of galactic civilization, the species other worlds called when they needed help maintaining peace. Alien students began attending human universities, studying not just human military tactics, but human philosophy about justice, peace, and the protection of the innocent. Human peacekeepers served on every major world, welcomed now as protectors rather than merely mediators. Emperor Thraxer abdicated 3 months after the trial, replaced by a council that immediately signed comprehensive peace treaties with every human world. The new Victor government began the long process of rebuilding their civilization, according to principles that emphasized cooperation over conquest. 1 year after Jake Morrison's death, President Rivera returned to the memorial station for the HYF dedication ceremony. The station's central monument was simple, a statue of Morrison in his peacekeeper uniform, with his final words carved into the base. Peace requires sacrifice, not victims. Rivera's dedication speech became one of the most quoted addresses in galactic history. We didn't want this war, he told the assembled representatives from dozens of worlds. We wanted peace. But when General Scarth H. killed Jake Morrison, he forced us to choose between accepting injustice and fighting for what was right. The president paused and looked at the statue of the man whose murder had changed everything. Jake Morrison believed that the strongest species wasn't the one with the biggest weapons or the toughest warriors. He believed it was the one willing to fight, not for conquest, but for the right of others to live in peace. Today, because of his sacrifice, that principle governs our galaxy. The ceremony ended with the reading of Morrison's personal journal, discovered after his death. His final entry, written the night before his murder, said simply, "Tomorrow's mediation session will be difficult, but I believe both sides want peace." Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes good intentions and hard work can prevent a war. I hope I'm right. Jake Morrison had been wrong about preventing that particular war, but his death had prevented countless others, establishing a galactic order based on justice and protection of the innocent. In the end, his sacrifice had accomplished exactly what he had always worked for, a galaxy where peace was possible because the strong chose to protect the weak rather than prey upon them. The human species had learned a hard lesson about the price of peace, but they had also taught the galaxy an even more important lesson about the consequences of breaking it.
Commander Zarthak stared at the blue planet through the view screen of his scout ship, Earth. The name felt strange in his thoughts. According to all Veltorian military intelligence, this world was ripe for conquest. The humans were supposed to be primitive, barely able to reach their own moon, let alone defend against the might of the Veltorian Empire. "Final approach vector locked in, Commander," said Lieutenant Krelvor from the navigation station. "Our stealth systems are operating at full capacity. Human detection systems should be completely blind to our presence." Zarthak nodded, his scaled skin reflecting the soft blue glow of the ship's interior lights. "Proceed with caution. Remember our mission parameters. We observe only." The small scout ship, sleek and predatory in design, curved through Earth's upper atmosphere. It left no trail, made no sound that human instruments could detect. At least that was what Zarthak believed. "Landing zone identified," reported Officer Mektal, the youngest member of the three-person crew. "It appears to be a desert region with minimal human presence, adjacent to one of their military testing facilities." Zarthak leaned forward. "Show me." The screen shifted to display a nighttime view of harsh rocky terrain. In the distance, the lights of a large complex glowed against the darkness. "White Sands Missile Range," Mektal read from the data. "According to our intelligence, it's where humans test their most advanced weapon systems." "Perfect," Zarthak said. "We'll establish our observation post on that ridge overlooking the facility." The ship descended silently, landing in a narrow canyon that would shield it from casual observation. Not that Zarthak expected any humans to spot them. The scout ship's cloaking technology was the pride of the Veltorian fleet, capable of bending light and absorbing radar. As the ship settled, on the rocky ground, Zarthak checked his personal equipment. The exosuit would protect him from Earth's atmosphere, which contained too much oxygen for Veltorian comfort. The translator implant behind his ear would convert human languages into something he could understand, and the optical enhancers would allow him to observe human activities from a safe distance. "Atmosphere and gravity checks complete," Krelvor reported, "within acceptable parameters for short-term exposure." Zarthak stood, towering over his subordinates. Even among Veltorians, known throughout the galaxy for their impressive physical form, Zarthak was tall. His muscular frame and the distinctive red markings on his crest indicated his high military rank and noble bloodline. "Let's move out," he ordered. "Remember, we're here to observe and report. The invasion fleet awaits our findings before they launch the main assault." The three Veltorians exited their ship, the desert night cool against their exosuits. They moved with practiced precision, setting up their observation equipment on the ridge just as the first hints of dawn touched the eastern sky. Through his enhanced optics, Zarthak studied the human facility below. It seemed so primitive compared to Veltorian military bases. Simple structures, basic perimeter security, vehicles that still relied on combustion engines. He felt a twinge of disappointment. Where was the challenge in conquering such a backward species? "Their technology is even more primitive than our briefing suggested," Krelvor said, echoing Zarthak's thoughts. "This conquest will bring little glory to the Empire." Zarthak wasn't so sure. Something about the layout of the base troubled him. It was too organized, too methodical, not what he expected from a species that had only achieved limited spaceflight capabilities. "We will observe for 3 solar cycles before reporting," Zarthak decided. "I want complete data, not hasty assumptions." As the Earth's sun rose fully, over the horizon activity at the base increased. Humans in uniform moved between buildings. Vehicles transported equipment. Aircraft occasionally took off and landed at a nearby airstrip. Zarthak zoomed in on one human in particular, a male who seemed to be giving orders to others. The translator picked up fragments of conversation, converting the strange human sounds into Veltorian language. Satellite detection confirmed. Unknown object entered atmosphere at 0200 hours. Deploy surveillance teams. Zarthak felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. Could the humans have detected their arrival? Impossible. Their technology was far too primitive, yet the activity below seemed purposeful, directed, not random training exercises. "Krelvor, analyze their communications channels," Zarthak ordered. "I want to know what they're saying." While his lieutenant worked, Zarthak continued his observations. The humans moved with a discipline he hadn't expected. Their vehicles, while primitive, operated with precision. There was something about these creatures that didn't match the intelligence reports. Meanwhile, inside the White Sands complex, Captain Samuel Wright reviewed the satellite footage for the 5th time. The object had entered Earth's atmosphere at speeds impossible for human aircraft, disappeared from radar almost immediately, and was last tracked heading toward their location. "What do you think, Lieutenant Martinez?" he asked the woman standing beside him. Olivia Martinez was the youngest officer ever appointed to the newly formed Space Defense Command, and for good reason. Her ability to anticipate non-human thought patterns was uncanny. "They're watching us, sir," she said simply. "This isn't a prelude to immediate attack. It's reconnaissance." Captain Wright nodded. "Then we should give them something to see." He reached for the secure phone on his desk. "Get me Colonel Harper at Advanced Weapons. Tell him Operation Looking Glass is a go." Back on the ridge, Krelvor turned to Zarthak with concern evident in his posture. "Commander, I'm detecting encrypted communications far more sophisticated than expected. Their encryption methods are impressive." Zarthak frowned. "Can you break them?" "Given time, perhaps. But there's something else." Krelvor hesitated. "Some of their communications technology uses principles similar to our own quantum relay systems." Now Zarthak was truly troubled. Quantum communication was not a technology a primitive species should possess. It suggested either remarkable independent development or, could they have encountered other spacefaring species? Mektal asked, voicing the concern now growing in all their minds. "Unknown," Zarthak replied. "But we will proceed with extra caution. Continuous monitoring of all frequencies. I want to know the moment anything changes." As the first day of observation continued, Zarthak watched the humans with growing unease. They didn't move like a species unaware of the greater galaxy. They moved like a species preparing for something. When darkness fell again, unusual activity began at the missile range. Lights blazed across the testing grounds. Vehicles and personnel converged on a central area. "They're preparing for something," Zarthak observed. "Some kind of night exercise, perhaps." But deep inside, a feeling he rarely experienced began to grow. Doubt. The mighty Veltorian Empire had conquered 17 worlds across 3 star systems. Earth was supposed to be an easy addition to that list. Yet as Zarthak watched the humans moving with purpose below, he couldn't shake the feeling that the Empire had seriously underestimated this species, and he would soon discover just how right that feeling was. The morning sun beat down on the desert landscape as Zarthak adjusted his optical enhancers. Activity at the human military base had increased dramatically overnight. Vehicles of various sizes and shapes now gathered on the wide testing grounds, forming neat rows that spoke of organization and purpose. "They're preparing some kind of demonstration," Zarthak said to Krelvor, who monitored communications beside him. "Perhaps a training exercise," the lieutenant replied. "Nothing that should concern us." Mektal, who had been scanning different sections of the facility, suddenly straightened. "Commander, look at the eastern section." Zarthak shifted his gaze. A group of humans in what appeared to be formal military attire had gathered near a raised platform. One human stood apart from the others, speaking into a device that amplified his voice. The translator implant struggled with the distance, catching only fragments. "Demonstration of our newest defensive capabilities. Visitors. Message of preparedness." "Visitors?" Krelvor questioned. "Could they mean us?" Zarthak silenced him with a gesture. "Impossible. Continue observation." What followed in the next hour shook Zarthak's confidence to its core. First came the missile launches, not the primitive chemical rockets his briefing had described, but sleek projectiles that shot into the sky with minimal exhaust signatures. They moved with a precision that matched Veltorian technology, executing mid-air course corrections that should have been beyond human capabilities. "Record everything," Zarthak ordered, his voice tight. "The fleet must see this." The missiles struck targets over the horizon with perfect accuracy. Moments later, a holographic display visible even from their distant observation post showed the results. Direct hits, no deviation. They shouldn't have this technology, Krelvor whispered. Our intelligence indicated they were decades away from such precision guidance systems. Zarthak remained silent, watching as the demonstration continued. Next came ground vehicles, armored transport carriers that moved across the desert terrain with surprising speed. When they reached the center of the testing ground, something even more shocking happened. Energy shields, actual energy shields, flickered to life around the vehicles, visible as faint blue bubbles in the morning light. Impossible, Mektal gasped. Energy deflection technology from humans? Zarthak zoomed in further, focusing on the lead vehicle. A human female stood atop it, directing the demonstration. Her uniform was different from the others, more elaborate, indicating higher rank. The translator picked up her commands clearly as she spoke into a communication device. Initiate weapons test sequence Alpha. All units prepare for simulated orbital bombardment. Orbital bombardment. The words sent a chill through Zarthak's body. That was the primary attack strategy of the Veltorian fleet. How could these humans be preparing specifically for that? The answer came moments later as the sky above the testing ground suddenly filled with small, drone-like objects. Hundreds of them, moving in perfect coordination. They began simulating an attack pattern that was disturbingly similar to standard Veltorian tactics. The ground vehicles responded, their energy shields adjusting frequency in real time to counter each simulated attack. Then countermeasures launched. Electromagnetic pulses and precision anti-air defenses that systematically destroyed the attacking drones. In the command center below, Colonel Frank Harper watched the demonstration with satisfaction. Beside him, Captain Samuel Wright and Lieutenant Olivia Martinez monitored the reactions from their hidden sensor array, aimed at the ridge where the aliens had established their observation post. They're definitely watching, Lieutenant Martinez confirmed. Heart rates elevated, communication patterns suggest distress. Colonel Harper nodded. Good. Move to Phase 2. Let's show them our heavy artillery. Back on the ridge, Zarthak could barely process what he was seeing. The humans were now rolling out larger weapons platforms, massive cannons that appeared to use some form of railgun technology. The energy requirements for such weapons should have been beyond human power. Generation capabilities. Yet when the weapons fired, the results were unmistakable. Hypervelocity projectiles struck distant targets with force that kicked up dust clouds visible even from their position. We need to report this immediately, Krelvor urged. The invasion fleet must be warned. Zarthak raised a hand. Not yet. There's more to see. As if responding to his words, the demonstration shifted again. This time, aircraft appeared, fighter jets that moved with an agility that surprised even Zarthak, a former pilot himself. They executed maneuvers that put immense strain on both machines and pilots, yet performed them flawlessly. Their aerial capabilities exceed expectations as well, Mektal noted, recording everything, though still reliant on atmospheric flight. Zarthak was about to respond when something new appeared in the sky. Not coming from the base, but from high above. It descended slowly, its shape unlike anything he had seen in human military records. What is that? Krelvor asked, zooming in with his own enhancers. The object was clearly a spacecraft of some kind, but it used propulsion technology that Zarthak didn't recognize. It hovered over the testing ground, then settled gently onto a landing pad that had been cleared for it. When a hatch opened and humans emerged, Zarthak felt the first real stirrings of fear. The ship was human-made, yet incorporated design elements that suggested advanced understanding of gravitational manipulation and energy systems. They have spaceflight capabilities far beyond what was reported, Zarthak said quietly. This changes everything. In the command center, Colonel Harper smiled as the experimental craft landed. It wasn't fully operational yet, more for show than actual combat, but the aliens wouldn't know that. Lieutenant Martinez, what's our guest's reaction to the XSV-1? He asked. Olivia checked her readings. Significant stress indicators, sir. I believe we've made our point. Not quite yet, Colonel Harper replied. Captain Wright, proceed with the final demonstration. On the ridge, The three Veltorians watched as the testing ground cleared. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then, without warning, the ground itself seemed to open. Hidden bunkers revealed massive missile silos, dozens of them. "Those are nuclear launch facilities," Mektal reported, alarm evident in his voice. "But they weren't on any of our scans." Before Zarthak could respond, the missiles began to launch, not just one or two, but in rapid succession. They soared into the upper atmosphere, then arced back down, striking ocean targets hundreds of miles away with precision that matched Veltorian capabilities. "They've been hiding their true technology level," Zarthak said, finally accepting what his eyes told him. "This changes the invasion calculus completely." As darkness began to fall again, the demonstrations finally ceased. The three Veltorians sat in stunned silence on their ridge, each processing what they had witnessed. "We should report immediately," Krelvor said again. "The fleet must know what we're facing." Zarthak shook his head. "Not yet. We've seen their land capabilities, but the briefing indicated their naval forces were their weakness. Tomorrow, we move to the coastline. I want to see if their ocean vessels are as advanced as their land forces." What he didn't say was that he needed time to think. If the humans were this advanced on land, what other surprises might they have waiting? And more troubling still, how had they known to prepare defenses that so specifically countered Veltorian attack strategies? As night fell completely, Zarthak stared at the distant facility, now lit by artificial lights. For the first time in his military career, he felt something unfamiliar, doubt about the outcome of a Veltorian conquest. The Veltorian scout ship moved silently through the night sky, keeping low over the landscape to avoid detection. After witnessing the unexpected land capabilities of the humans, Zarthak had ordered an immediate relocation to observe their naval forces. Approaching the coastline, Mektal reported from the navigation controls. "I've identified a suitable observation point on a cliff overlooking a major human naval base." Zarthak nodded. "Take us down. Maintain full stealth protocols." The scout ship settled gently on a wooded cliff overlooking the vast Pacific Ocean. Through breaks in the trees, they could see the lights of a massive naval installation spread out below them. Ships of various sizes were docked in the harbor, from small patrol boats to massive aircraft carriers. "According to our intelligence," Krelvor said, reviewing the mission briefing data, "human naval forces are their most vulnerable military branch. Their vessels are slow, visible to all detection systems, and limited to surface or near-surface operations." Zarthak made a dismissive sound. "Our intelligence has been wrong about everything else. We will observe and form our own conclusions." As dawn broke over the ocean, the three Veltorians established their observation post among the trees. The day began with routine activities at the naval base, ships moving in and out of harbor, aircraft taking off and landing on the massive carrier vessels. "Nothing exceptional so far," Mektal noted. "Perhaps the naval forces truly are their weakness." Zarthak wasn't convinced. "Keep watching." Around mid-morning, activity at the base increased. A formation of ships began moving out to sea, led by a massive aircraft carrier. Zarthak focused his optical enhancers on the vessel's designation. USS Independence, he read. Their newest carrier according to our data. The carrier and its escort ships moved purposefully out to open water. Once clear of the harbor, aircraft began launching from the carrier's deck. Not just a few, but dozens in rapid succession. Standard fighter aircraft, Krelvor observed. Fast, but limited, to atmospheric operation. But then something unexpected happened. From the deck of the carrier rose what appeared to be small unmanned crafts. Hundreds of them, forming a swarm that moved with coordinated intelligence. Drone swarm technology, Zarthak said, his voice tight. Look at the formation patterns. The drones moved as a single entity, executing complex defensive patterns around the carrier group. Then, without warning, they shifted to offensive formations, simulating attacks on imaginary targets with precision that stunned the watching aliens. The level of coordination suggests advanced AI systems, Mektal said, recording everything, far beyond what our briefings indicated. On the bridge of the USS Independence, Commander Nicole Davidson observed the drone exercise with satisfaction. The experimental swarm system was performing even better than expected. "Drone demonstration complete, ma'am," reported her communications officer. "Captain Powell requests permission to proceed with the submarine demonstration." Commander Davidson nodded. "Tell him he's clear to proceed, and make sure all systems are broadcasting at maximum clarity. We want our observers to get a good show." Back on the cliff, Zarthak's attention was drawn to a disturbance in the water near the carrier group. Something large was surfacing, a submarine of impressive size. "That's the USS Barracuda," Krelvor identified from their intelligence files. Their newest underwater vessel. The submarine broke the surface cleanly, water streaming from its dark hull. Once stable, hatches on its forward deck opened. "Missile launch tubes," Mektal observed. What followed was another demonstration that defied Veltorian expectations. The submarine launched what appeared to be standard missiles, but their behavior after launch was anything but standard. The projectiles rose, then altered course multiple times, communicating with each other to create attack patterns that would be nearly impossible to counter. "Those missiles are networked," Zarthak said, unable to keep the alarm from his voice. "They're sharing targeting data and adjusting in real time." The missiles struck targets floating far out at sea with perfect accuracy. Not one miss, not one error. "Their underwater capabilities exceed our countermeasures," Zarthak noted grimly. "And their surface vessels appear hardened against our standard orbital bombardment tactics." He zoomed in further on the carrier, noting details he had missed before. The hull material wasn't standard metal as expected, but something composite that would likely resist energy weapons. The defense systems visible on the deck included what appeared to be energy-based point defense weapons, technology that shouldn't be possible for humans at their reported development stage. "We were wrong about everything," Krelvor said quietly. "These humans are not primitive." Aboard the submarine USS Barracuda, Captain Ethan Powell received the confirmation that the missile test had been successful. "All targets destroyed, sir," reported his weapons officer. "Network performance at 98.7% efficiency." Powell nodded. "Excellent. Prepare for the final demonstration." On the cliff, the three Veltorians watched as the submarine submerged again. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then, without warning, the water around the carrier group began to churn. "What's happening?" Mektal asked, adjusting his sensors. Before anyone could answer, multiple smaller vessels burst from beneath the waves simultaneously, at least 20 of them, appearing in perfect coordination. Stealth underwater drones, Zarthak identified, his military training allowing him to recognize the technology despite never having seen human versions before. They were there the entire time, and our sensors didn't detect them. The underwater drones performed a complex dance around the carrier group, demonstrating both defensive and offensive capabilities. Some fired smaller torpedoes at targets. Others released countermeasures that created confusion zones in the water, areas where sensors would be blind. Their underwater warfare capabilities are at least equal to our own, Zarthak admitted, possibly superior in some aspects. As evening approached, the naval demonstration concluded. The carrier group formed up and began returning to base, their message clearly delivered. "We need to report these findings immediately," Krelvor insisted. "The invasion fleet is expecting minimal resistance from a primitive species. What we've seen suggests the humans could actually repel our forces, or at least inflict unacceptable casualties." Zarthak stared out at the ocean, watching the ships disappear into the distance. "Not yet. One more observation area. Tomorrow we observe their aerial combat systems." "Commander," Mektal said hesitantly, "I'm beginning to suspect the humans know we're watching. These demonstrations seem targeted, almost as if they're sending us a message." Zarthak had been considering the same possibility. The human demonstrations had specifically showcased capabilities that would counter standard Veltorian invasion tactics. That couldn't be coincidence. "If they know we're here," Krelvor said, "our mission is compromised. We should leave immediately." "We complete the mission," Zarthak said firmly. but we'll relocate after dark and maintain absolute stealth. I suspect you're right. They are aware of our presence, but I need to understand how they detected us before we report back. As night fell over the ocean, the scout ship lifted off, silently from the cliff. Zarthak looked back at the naval base, its lights twinkling against the darkness. For the first time in his military career, he felt genuine concern about a coming conflict. The mighty Veltorian Empire had never faced a species that was truly prepared for them, until now. The morning sun had barely risen when Zarthak and his team established their new observation post. This time, they had chosen a location near a remote Air Force testing range, hidden among rocky outcroppings that provided both cover and a clear view of the skies above. All recording systems active, Mektal reported, setting up their equipment with practiced efficiency. If the humans demonstrate aerial capabilities today, we'll capture everything. Krelvor looked nervous, constantly checking their perimeter sensors. Commander, I still believe we should depart immediately. The humans have shown capabilities far beyond our intelligence estimates. And if they're aware of our presence, we complete the mission, Zarthak interrupted. The Empire needs complete data before launching an invasion fleet. The truth was more complex. Zarthak was beginning to question whether an invasion should proceed at all. The demonstrations he had witnessed over the past 2 days suggested the humans could mount a defense that would result in unacceptable Veltorian casualties. But such thoughts bordered on treason. His duty was to observe and report, not to make policy. Activity detected, Mektal announced, drawing Zarthak from his thoughts. Aircraft approaching from the south. Through their optical enhancers, they watched as a formation of fighter jets approached the testing range. The aircraft were sleek, their design suggesting an emphasis on stealth and speed. Standard atmospheric fighters, Krelvor noted. Advanced, but nothing unexpected. Zarthak wasn't so sure. Watch their maneuverability. As if responding to his words, the fighters suddenly broke formation, executing a series of aerial maneuvers that defied Veltorian understanding of human piloting capabilities. The G-forces involved should have incapacitated the pilots. Yet the aircraft moved with precision that suggested either extraordinary human tolerance or advanced systems assisting the pilots. Their control systems must be far more sophisticated than reported, Zarthak observed. Look at the turn radius on that banking maneuver. The jets continued their demonstration, showcasing speed, agility, and coordination that impressed even Zarthak, who had been one of the Veltorian fleet's top pilots before his promotion to commander. Then came something new. From a hangar at the edge of the testing range emerged what appeared to be unmanned aerial vehicles, drones larger than those they had observed during the naval demonstration. Combat drones, Mektal identified, but much more advanced than anything in our briefing materials. The drones took to the air without human pilots, moving with an agility that even the impressive fighter jets couldn't match. Free from the biological limitations of human pilots, they executed maneuvers that would have killed any living operator, pulling turns and accelerations that bent the laws of physics. Their AI systems are far more advanced than reported, Zarthak said, recording everything. These drones operate with near-sentient decision-making capabilities. The drones formed complex attack patterns, simulating combat against imaginary enemies. They communicated with each other, adapted to changing situations, and demonstrated weapon systems that included both conventional projectiles and what appeared to be directed energy weapons. At the control center of the Air Force testing range, Major Allison Carter monitored the performance of her experimental XV-7 Phantom aircraft from a secure bunker. All systems nominal, reported her chief engineer. Stealth capabilities at maximum efficiency. The observers on the ridge won't detect it until we're right on top of them. Major Carter nodded. Good. Let's proceed with the final phase. General Carter wants to make sure our visitors get the full picture of our capabilities. Back at the observation post, Zarthak and his team were so focused on the aerial demonstration that they failed to notice a new signal on their perimeter sensors, a faint blip that appeared and disappeared too quickly for the automated systems to trigger an alarm. Their drone technology alone would pose a significant threat to our landing craft, Krelvor was saying. his earlier nervousness replaced by professional analysis. Combined with their fighter capabilities, our air superiority during the initial invasion phase cannot be guaranteed. Zarthak was about to respond when something impossible happened. A voice, a human voice, came directly through their communication system. To the alien observation team on the ridge. We've been aware of your presence since your arrival. This demonstration has been for your benefit. Consider carefully what you report back to your superiors. The three Veltorians froze, looking at each other in shock. Their communication system was supposed to be undetectable, encrypted with technology no human should be able to access, let alone breach. How is this possible? Mektal whispered, checking their equipment for malfunction. There's no way they could. He fell silent as the air above them shimmered, and a previously invisible aircraft suddenly appeared less than 100 meters away, hovering silently. It was unlike any human aircraft they had observed. No visible propulsion system, no exhaust, no sound at all. That's not possible, Krelvor said, his voice tight with shock. Their technology can't. Apparently it can, Zarthak replied, staring at the craft. Its design was elegant, almost beautiful, incorporating elements that reminded him uncomfortably of Veltorian engineering principles. The voice came again through their system. This is Major Allison Carter, pilot of the X-7 Phantom. Your cloaking technology is impressive, but we've been tracking you since you entered our atmosphere. Every demonstration you've witnessed was specifically designed to convey a message. Earth is not the primitive world your intelligence suggested. In the cockpit of the fixed E-7, Major Carter watched the alien observation post through advanced sensors that penetrated their camouflage. The aliens were humanoid but clearly not human, taller, with scaled skin and distinctive crests on their heads. They looked shocked, exactly as General Carter had predicted they would. How should we proceed, Major? Came the voice of her co-pilot in the rear seat. Keep position. General Carter wants them shaken, not harmed. On the ground, Zarthak had recovered from his initial shock. Military training took over as he assessed their situation. We need to leave, Krelvor said, panic evident in his voice. They've been watching us the entire time. Now they're showing their aerospace capabilities, Mektal added, still recording despite his obvious fear. That craft is at least equal to our scout ship in technology. Zarthak made a quick decision. Prepare for immediate extraction, but first... He looked up at the hovering craft. I need to understand how they detected us. He opened a channel on their communication system, hoping the humans could receive as well as transmit. This is Commander Zarthak of the Veltorian Expeditionary Force. Your demonstrations have been educational, but I must know, how did you detect our presence? Our cloaking technology should be beyond your current capabilities. There was a pause, then Major Carter's voice returned. We've had prior experience with Veltorian technology, Commander. More than your Empire realizes. The implications of that statement hit Zarthak like a physical blow. Had there been previous contact, prior scouts who never returned, or something worse? Had the humans somehow acquired Veltorian technology? We will be departing your world, Zarthak said formally. We came to observe only. We know, Major Carter replied. But before you go, General William Carter requests a meeting. He believes it would be beneficial for both our species. Zarthak hesitated. Military protocol dictated immediate withdrawal once a reconnaissance mission was compromised. But curiosity and concern for what this might mean for the Empire made him pause. We will consider the request, he finally replied. Allow us to return to our vessel first. As the three Veltorians packed their equipment, the HFY Phantom maintained its position overhead, a silent reminder of how drastically wrong their intelligence had been about human capabilities. Commander, Krelvor said quietly, do you believe meeting with the humans is wise? Zarthak looked up at the hovering craft, its technology a disturbing mystery. I don't know, but I do know this. What we report back will determine whether the Empire launches an invasion or seeks another approach. And right now, I lack critical information to make that report complete. The fate of two species might hang on his decision. Zarthak stood beside his scout ship, watching as 3 human vehicles approached across the desert floor. He had agreed to meet with this General Carter, but insisted on doing so near their vessel. If things went badly, they could at least attempt an escape. "This is unwise, Commander," Krelvor said, standing slightly behind him. "Meeting with the humans violates protocol." "Protocol assumes superiority," Zarthak replied quietly. "I'm no longer certain that assumption is valid." The human vehicles stopped 50 meters away. They were military in design, armored but not overtly aggressive. 6 humans emerged, 5 wearing combat uniforms with weapons visible but not aimed. The 6th, an older male with silver hair and an air of authority, wore a more formal uniform adorned with symbols of rank. "That must be General Carter," Mektal observed from the ship's sensor station, communicating through their implants. The general approached alone, stopping at a respectful distance. "Commander Zarthak, I presume. I'm General William Carter of Earth's Extraterrestrial Defense Initiative. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." Zarthak was surprised by the directness. No deception, no attempt to hide the fact that humans had an organization specifically designed for alien contact. "You've been expecting us." It wasn't a question, but General Carter nodded anyway. "For quite some time, we've been aware of the Veltorian Empire and its expansion habits." Zarthak felt a chill that had nothing to do with the desert air. "That information is not possible for you to have." General Carter's expression remained neutral. "I believe you'll find many of your assumptions about Earth need revision, Commander. With your permission, I'd like to show you something that might explain our situation more clearly." Curiosity, the trait that had made Zarthak an exceptional scout, won out over caution. "Proceed." The general made a gesture and one of his soldiers approached, carrying a small case. When opened, it revealed what appeared to be a data storage device, but its design was unmistakably Veltorian. "This can't be," Zarthak said, restraining himself from reaching for the device. "This is Veltorian technology." "Yes," General Carter confirmed. "Recovered from a damaged scout ship very similar to yours that crashed on Earth 47 years ago." The revelation hit Zarthak like a physical blow. No such mission failure had ever been reported to the military, which meant the Empire had either never known about the crash, or worse, had concealed it. "The ship was mostly destroyed, General," Carter continued, "but we recovered enough technology to begin understanding your capabilities. More importantly, we learned about your intentions toward Earth." Zarthak remained silent, processing this information. It explained so much: how the humans had detected their arrival, how they knew to prepare defenses specifically designed to counter Veltorian tactics. "I would like to show you our facility," General Carter said. "With appropriate security measures, of course. I believe it's important for you to understand exactly what you would be reporting back to your superiors." Against Krelvor's continued objections, Zarthak agreed. After ensuring the scout ship was secured and leaving Mektal to guard it, he accompanied the humans in one of their vehicles. The journey was short, ending at what appeared to be a simple entrance built into a mountainside. Once inside, however, Zarthak realized the facility extended deep underground, far deeper than their scans had detected. The security was impressive, with multiple checkpoints and security measures that suggested serious defensive capabilities. Finally, they reached what appeared to be the heart of the facility. General Carter gestured to a large view screen on one wall. "This is what I wanted you to see, Commander." The screen activated, showing orbital views of Earth, but from perspectives that could only have come from advanced satellites. The views shifted, zooming in on various military installations around the planet. Each one showcased technology that matched or exceeded what Zarthak had witnessed in the demonstrations. "We've been preparing for decades," General Carter explained. "What you saw was only a fraction of our defensive capabilities." The display changed again, this time showing what appeared to be a massive shipyard hidden beneath the ocean surface. "Our space program," the general continued, "has a public face that suggests we're still taking baby steps into our solar system. The reality is somewhat different." The images shifted to show spacecraft under construction, vessels that incorporated both human innovation and elements clearly inspired by Veltorian design. "You've built warships," Zarthak said, unable to keep the shock from his voice. "Defensive vessels," General Carter corrected. "We have no interest in conquest, Commander, but we will defend our world." The final images showed orbital defense platforms, dozens of them hidden in plain sight, disguised as communication satellites or space debris. "A complete defensive grid," General Carter said, "capable of targeting and destroying vessels even, as advanced as your Empire's dreadnoughts." Zarthak stared at the evidence before him. If accurate, and he had little reason to doubt it now, the planned invasion would be a disaster for the Veltorian fleet. "Why show me this?" he finally asked. "You're revealing your defensive capabilities to a potential enemy." General Carter's expression remained calm. "Because we'd prefer not to be enemies at all, Commander. Your Empire has conquered 17 worlds across 3 star systems. Each victory made easier because those worlds were unprepared, unaware of the threat until it was too late." He gestured to the screen, now showing the full array of Earth's hidden defenses. "We are not unprepared. We are not unaware. And we would rather find a path to peaceful coexistence than force you to learn that lesson through conflict." The general stepped closer, meeting Zarthak's gaze directly. "Your mission was never about gathering intelligence, Commander. It was about delivering a message." Understanding dawned. "You knew who I was before I arrived." General Carter nodded. "Your father is Fleet Admiral Zarkuthal, the architect of the planned invasion. We needed someone with direct access to the highest levels of your military hierarchy." The humans had known not just about Veltorian technology, but about their political and military structure as well. The implications were staggering. "You want me to tell them not to come?" Zarthak said, finally comprehending the full scope of the situation. "We want you to tell them the truth," General Carter corrected. "Earth is not the primitive world your intelligence suggests. We are prepared to defend ourselves, with capabilities that would result in unacceptable losses for your fleet." He paused, then added, "But we're also prepared to establish diplomatic relations, to find a path that doesn't require either side to demonstrate their military might in actual conflict." Zarthak considered his options. His duty to the Empire demanded an accurate report, but such a report would likely lead to one of 2 outcomes: either a disastrous invasion attempt that would cost countless Veltorian lives, or a shift to diplomatic relations from a position of unexpected equality rather than dominance. "I will deliver your message," he finally said, "and my report will be accurate. What the Empire chooses to do with that information is beyond my control." General Carter nodded. "That's all we ask, Commander." 3 days later, Zarthak's scout ship departed Earth orbit. Along with his detailed report, he carried comprehensive evidence of human military capabilities far beyond what the Veltorian Empire could counter without catastrophic losses. When he presented his findings to the Veltorian High Command, including his own father, the planned invasion was postponed indefinitely. For the first time in its history, the mighty Veltorian Empire chose diplomacy over conquest. And Zarthak, forever changed by what he had witnessed, became an advocate for peaceful relations with the humans, a species whose military might had not only shaken him to his core, but had forced an entire empire to reconsider its place in the galaxy. As formal diplomatic relations were established 6 months later, Zarthak found himself appointed as the first Veltorian ambassador to Earth. His first meeting was with General William Carter, now serving as Earth's diplomatic liaison. "You delivered our message well, Ambassador," the general said, offering a human greeting gesture. Zarthak returned the gesture awkwardly. "I simply told the truth, General. It was enough to change the course of history for both our peoples." Sometimes, he reflected, the greatest show of strength was knowing when not to use it at all.